on sport, recreation, and culture and address any questions you may have. So in terms of challenges and opportunities following the same template that the other directors spoke to, there's a number of large projects that can be completed over the next year, ranging from the museum to the construction of the new fire stations, to the various park developments that are currently budgeted and in process this year. There's, again, as we highlighted in the previous question through Councillor Thompson, the operating costs associated with new infrastructure, and that specifically being the Fleming Centre, as we continue to look where we can make some tweaks there to make sure that we get the best value and the best service delivery to our residents. And of course, just the rising costs that we experience, whether that be utility costs, the more stringent environmental regulations, and the demand for larger investments to meet the various building code and regulatory compliance issues, as the chief mentioned earlier. Additionally, when we look at our aging workforce from a human resources standpoint, SRC is one of our oldest workforces, and when you couple that with the extension of some of the seasonal offerings, we've extended our ice time, and this year, for instance, it got warmer sooner in the year, so that transition where we have our arena staff converting to our park staff sometimes poses some challenges. And then again, just the expansion of service offerings. The last point on that is just the master plan, work plan, envisioning required, and some of the prioritization that we're doing around the various elements of that portfolio. So there's also significant opportunities. There's some exciting legacy projects that will become community anchors and community assets. If I think about some of the park developments that we're looking at, whether that be Charles Daly and some of the work that we can do there, and really leave a legacy at that particular location, moving forward with Prokich Park, and really that becoming an anchor. I think we look at Meadowood Park and a number of other parks within the town. There's huge opportunity, I think, as it relates to park developments. And again, the new parks, whether that be in our new subdivisions that are moving forward, whether that be, the works that we're going to see occur in Prudhome's, there's some exciting opportunities as it relates to parks. The fire stations, and again, those becoming both in Vineland and Camden, real community nodes and community hubs for people. I know I've talked with both Councillor McMillan and Councillor Timmers about, public space within that facility and within, fire stations as a whole that can be used by the public, specifically when there aren't certain other amenities in those particular locations. And again, a chance to be bold and do some innovative stuff around some of that planning. One of the other projects, again, that we highlighted up there that I passed was the museum and the exciting, cultural amenity that we'll have in that particular location. So in terms of alignment to the priority plan, if we look at communications, continuing to address and refine SRC's community outreach work so that timely and relevant information is communicated to our customers. Something that we hadn't been doing in previous years that we are starting to communicate is really our heat alerts and how our facilities become those cooling centers, and how they become those centers for folks in emergencies. So I know Director Hussein and Chief Hudson, have worked on those and ensuring that that's communicated. Maximizing the use of technology. Again, we're looking at Max Galaxy to better reach our existing customer base and ensuring that we can capture that information and share metrics. And again, working with our government and industry partners in terms of government relations. There's some funding opportunities that we've been successful with through the region. We've made various grant asks through Canada 150 and the Canadian Heritage organizations that have a lot of monies coming in the next year for Canada 150. In terms of economic development, continuing to stress that SRC is open for business. There's business and operating plans for the museum and getting those in place so that they become as sustainable as possible. I know every time Lori comes to SRC committee, both her and Councillor Thompson get incredibly excited about the Healthy Kids Challenges and the good work going on there. The Mavericks hockey opportunity, and I think I shared with members of council yesterday, the potential to have, moving forward in the summer months, some arena football occurring within the Fleming Center as we look at other potential offerings in our downtimes where we could use that space in the dry floor. BIA development, the PRIP funding that we announced in the beautification plans, that was something that we've been successful in moving forward with as it relates to the SRC portfolio. The temporary museum location at the old library town hall site, and the Canadian 150 Street Festival that you heard presented a few meetings ago when we shared with council all the work going on around Canada 150. So a lot of great stuff happening with the BIA. It was great to have the BIA here present in terms of what they're doing, and again, just how we work together, whether it be the farmers market and some of the other initiatives that can be supported through SRC. The last point on this page around economic development is the establishment of various community events. You see, I think, a vibrant Canada 150 committee that is planning significant works. We've tried to have Labor Day skates and swims, the Christmas camp that we're introducing this year, an incredibly successful Pioneer Day, and looking at a new location next year for the New Year's Levy and an expansion of that program. In terms of cultural planning, we continue to address some of the gaps in the town parks. We'll be coming forward, and I think Director Hussain shared with you some of the principles we want to have as it relates to all our particular parks, and that includes trees in a tree canopy, shaded structures where it makes sense, seating, whether that be benches or picnic tables, various sport uses at those sites, splash pads as we look at just, generally what people want in the amenities, and water fountains. Point 2 there, again, focusing on, cultural opportunities that are available. And the last point there, focusing on the community gaps and the community work underway, the partnership with Rotary, the Lions Club, Community Care of West Niagara, and the Niagara Community Foundation, and how we strengthen those. Customer service, we continue to address customer service and build on the customer service that our SRC staff provide. There are oftentimes, along with our public works staff, the frontline staff that interact with residents on a daily basis. We are looking at, within our new facilities, do we offer any other services, because a lot of people access the Fleming Center, for example. We're working on offering refunds at facilities other than Town Hall. Again, if people register for programs and want to do things, is there an opportunity, if they're in the Fleming Center, that they do that at that particular location? And again, the delivery of certain amenities, for example, recycling bins, as we start to look at our sport facilities as becoming almost customer service centers where people can do other things. We're looking at our approved community group policy to ensure it's flexible and remains relevant. And again, we're ensuring our internal customers in SRC can be accommodated in a timely manner. We're looking at our room bookings for PICs. David mentioned to you, I think, the new work order system and how that make the delivery of work and the completion of work easier and more able to be documented and shared in terms of implementing metrics into what we do. So on the roads, transportation, and traffic element and how it relates to SRC, again, I think Director Graham highlighted the active transportation work and how that's moving forward. And so beyond just bike lanes, we're looking at bike racks, water fountains, shade and rest areas, and that's collaboration between Public Works and SRC. The ongoing streetscaping and beautification throughout the entire town. We're looking at having a much more visible presence at Christmas. We continue to talk to our contractors, Bosma Landscaping, about how we achieve that, how we look at the existing contracts and ensure that maybe we tender things together. Councillor Foster, you had highlighted it on the vehicles. Are we looking at economies of scale? Are we looking at tendering with other municipalities for the purchases of trees and so forth? 150,000 tulips, you've heard that, an incredibly successful program. Councillor McMillan and Timmers, in terms of handing those tulips with other members of council at schools, creating a real buzz in the community, and as it relates to tulips and that tulip program, and a program that I think is going to cost the town zero, other than the idea coming from us. The community's really picked that up and kind of run with it. New signs in our parks and at our facilities, and again, the BIA streetscape improvements. Cross-departmental reviews as it relates to some of our new subdivisions and road closures with public works and planning, again, to ensure that connectivity with bike lanes, trails, and parks. So in terms of the proposed SRC capital projects, Project 29 and 30 have to do with the pool here in Beamsville, AFG pool, and both a heater replacement and the replacement of the lifeguard chairs there. Project 32 is the facility security upgrades, and I know Councillor Bernay had a question as it relates to the temporary site for the museum, and we'll get back to you on Saturday as it relates to that particular location. But we're looking at facility security upgrades at Jordan Arena, Jordan Pool, the Lincoln Center, AFG, and Town Hall. Project number 33, we've spoken with council about before, and that is the backup generator at the Fleming Center. Project 37, similarly, the generator here at Town Hall. Project 34, the Jordan Arena pool communication line, and I know as recent as today, John has been having further conversations around maybe some tweaks or amendments we do to that particular project. So I think there's some opportunities to find some savings as it relates to project number 34. Project number 35, as highlighted in our asset management plan, replacement of the roof at the Jordan Museum site, and item 36, the modifications as a result of funding from the provincial government that we are going to supplement and add to at the Lincoln Center. So maybe I'll stop here if there's any questions on these as I get to my budget sheets on each of those.
Yeah. So I'll start with Councillor Rajima and then Councillor Bernay.
Thank you, Chair Foster. With the generator at the Fleming Center, backup generator okay, so the generator at the Fleming Center, generator at Town Hall, and then after that we'll have generators at all our, at the four fire. How many generators will we have once that's done?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll let the chief speak to the fire halls, but my understanding is we will now have 6 generators once these 2 are complete. I can let the chief speak to the fire element of that.
Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair Foster. To the question, each fire station does have a backup generator now, and with the addition of the one at the Fleming Center and the replacement of the one here, that would ensure that all of our facilities are well protected in case of an emergency situation.
Thank you. Good to know.
Can I quick add a comment to that as well? The backup generator at Fleming and also the generator here at Town Hall, for them to be truly effective also requires a fairly significant UPS system of some variety as well. So I'm just wondering if that's being taken into account. Basically, you need to make sure that you have your battery failover that's going on with that. So I don't know if that's being taken into account, but systems such as your computer systems can't fail. So you get into dangerous situations if your generator's cutting in just after a thing and everything's gone black just ahead of it. So Anyway, just wondering if that is being taken into account.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll let John speak to the piece around the battery piece. I know that was an issue as it relates here to Town Hall when we had that one, I'm going to call blackout here at Town Hall, and we struggled to get the generator working, and I think there was something that had tripped, and there was a battery issue. But I will let John speak to that particular piece you've highlighted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue that happened here last year actually happened with a power transfer that has since been replaced. It didn't allow the generator to pick up the load from the building when we lost the grid, and actually prevented it from switching back to the grid when the power was restored. That unit's since been replaced. The Fleming Center, the battery backups were included in the base build, which means that they were built in from the very get-go. And we just purchased 2 batteries last year as part of the switching purchase to beef up our switching batteries. So we were quite functional for quite a long period of time should there be any minor malfunctions with the generator or any slowdowns in changeover from the grid.
Okay, for Saturday, I'd like to have a bit more detail on that, if you can. You know, what our actual capacity is, et cetera, as we're making these decisions. So,
yeah,
okay.
Not a problem, Mr. Chair.
I have Councillor Bernay and then Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Chair Foster. Just a quick comment on Project 36. I'm glad to see that we're spending some money over there. I know at the food drive, I heard a couple comments about the fact that that facility was starting to look long in the tooth, and I know we did some painting there and some washroom upgrades, so glad to see. We're always talking about revenue and driving revenue, so for a little bit of money, $17,000, maybe we can get some increased rental revenue through those modifications, so I'm glad to see that. And just a quick question, I know you had it in your previous slide with regards to the sports dome, the potential sports dome at Jordan. Is there, you know, if we are successful moving this forward with our discussions with the Ottawa group, is there anything that we should have in this budget with regards to anything that could take place down at the Jordan Park in terms of the sports dome?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as it relates to the sports dome, there are some negotiations that are ongoing right now. I think there may be the need for us to do some capital upgrades at what I'm going to call the pool house. You know, I do need to talk, I think, with Director Hussein and Angela as it relates, do we have any monies within our reserves to do those, and what would be the scope of those upgrades that are required by the Sports Dome consortium at that particular site. So duly noted, Councillor, and I'll make sure by Saturday we've at least got a preliminary assessment, and I'll reach out to the Sports Dome group as well to see, you know, what are their needs should they be required.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Just clarification on 35. That's the roof replacement on the schoolhouse and the Fry House. I wouldn't want anybody to think we're going to replace the roof on the building and then tear it down.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as I was reading that, I thought council's going to think, why are we replacing the roof on a building we're tearing down? You are correct. It is the Fry House, and that is just a communication error. So, you know, I take responsibility for not being as clear as I probably should have on that one. But thank you for that clarification. You're correct. It is those 2 buildings on the site.
I guess through to Mr. Kirkopoulos. You mentioned with project number 36, the Lincoln Center modifications, that was based on provincial funding, some form of funding, and it's showing right now that there's a capital tax levy implication. Is that a 50-50 where we do half and they do half? Just curious.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there had been a fund that had been set up through the Provincial Senior Secretariat, and at that time I think we had been successful in securing 2 amounts. One was $8,000 and I think the other one was close to that amount, and I think what we determined, you know, I know I've been in that facility, whether it was the Harvest lunch recently with Councillor Timmers, or at the Seniors Awards, and it did need some work. I think there's a lot of potential. It's located in a great area. There wasn't one of the questions and I think one of the stipulations of receiving those funds through the province was making sure that we're also making like investments. I'll have to recall what the exact formula was. I don't know if it was 25% or 50%, but there's definitely part of the application involved, additional works that we were going to leverage provincial money for.
Follow-up, just as a follow-up to that too, and maybe a possible improvement too is, and I don't know how long ago, I'm going to say 8 years ago, we purchased chairs for the Fleming, or for the Lincoln Center. They're kind of ratty, and having, sitting on the Wise Guys charity, we had an ask from Port Cares. So changes in the public health is that you can't have fabric chairs when you're serving food and doing things like that because of the bacteria and things that are caused there. So maybe if there's a grant opportunity, we should look at that, because it's an opportunity just to keep ahead with public health standards and issues like that, so we don't run any risk of liability in that way.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a great idea. Again, it's a well-attended location. The seniors are incredibly active. I think they brought me over 3 slices of pie. I ate all 3. It is a great site. I had a great time. They made great soup, and I agree with you. The volunteers have their events at that location, and you want for your volunteers, and seniors do a lot for this community. You want to make sure that we provide appropriate seating, freshen up the paint, do those, I think, minor things that are incredibly low cost. And if there are grants, again, the province is giving money through their seniors secretariat to facilities like this, and they were very complimentary of our application and the work we wanted to do at this location.
Mayor Easton?
Mr. Chairman, the issue of painting, is this an operations issue? I'm thinking of Bennett Hall, Clinton Township Hall, as well as the senior center. That would be operations.
Yeah, that's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I think this point about the chairs is a really good one, because there's lots of surface. We don't have to go to plastic chairs. There's lots of opportunities with the kind of furniture they have in seniors facilities to have comfortable chairs. I'm sure that's why they went to them in the first place. Also, I just wanted to clarify with the museum, the Fry House Museum, does this include the downspouts? And because right now they're wooden, so I was wondering how authentic this roof was going to be.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm looking at Dave, and I'm assuming in saying they should be, part of that replacement, but I will confirm before Saturday or at an appropriate time, and between now and Saturday, and advise members of council of what's part of that replacement.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Kirkopoulos. In regards to the 2 generator projects, 33 and 37, based on the way the federal government's been sort of dishing out money for infrastructure, has there been any talk of something, because these are both emergency sites for our town, so I don't know if that's, and I know I'm sort of putting you on the spot on that, but I'm just wondering if there's anything that kind of caught your eye in regards to those grant opportunities.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there hasn't. I mean, we'll take one more look between now and again Saturday to determine if any of the infrastructure programs, allow for us to do this sort of work. They're fairly prescriptive, as it relates to right now transit and water/wastewater services. I think moving forward, they're looking at more of the softer services, more of the community and recreational facilities. That said, we have explored with NPEI if there's some sort of partnership that we could do around the generator. I think in terms of usage and those sorts of things, it didn't seem like it was viable for them as it relates to that. And so I will endeavor between now and Saturday to see if any of those grant programs, in particular, look at community safety or
public safety
in the public safety realm.
Okay, next.
Just picking up further on the other SRC projects, we've, you've heard the chief speak through Councillor Regima's question to Project 31, and that is the temporary accommodations at the Beamsville Fire Station. We have the HVAC upgrades here at the Town Hall server room. The Beamsville Lions Park upgrade design and some of the design work that needs to occur there. And you heard me mention early on in the presentation about some of the parks and transformational elements to some of the parks. We're looking at the Charles Daly driveway paving, which we're told from an operations perspective needs to move forward. And again, the park design on that particular location in terms of some of the master plan work. I know the Rotary has come in to talk to us about some of the visions for that site. I think there needs to be a public consultation piece to it and a determination what we do with that particular location.
Okay, Mary Easton.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on Project 46. It doesn't appear that this work at Charles Daly includes the area that's down near the lake where we replaced the accessible parking spots. Is that correct? It doesn't include that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, it does not.
All right. Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kirkopoulos, how could we have missed the fact that the area to the east of the new parking spots is a major mud hole?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll have to, talk with both Director Graham and Director Hussein as it relates to the topography of the site. I mean, I've driven it. I'm trying to recall, where that is. I know there's, some issues with the upper part of the parking lot and where we've got those accessible parking spots. But I think at this point in time, I will try to get you that answer before Saturday, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Chairman, my apologies. I have a question about Project 45 and whether or not the design work would in any way fit in with the Canada Games, any approval through the Canada Games.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think the simple answer to that is yes, and we continue to have conversations with the Canada 2021's folks as it relates to that and other potential opportunities that I will be before Council on shortly.
Thank you.
Councillor Njima.
Thank you. My question is also about project number 45. Where are we with that? I was just reading about. Where are we with the washrooms? What's happening with that? I was reading, I don't remember where I was reading it, but I was reading about our plans to build the washroom and then phase in the field house and the something else. I forget where I was reading it.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is phase one of that work, Councillor Regima. Okay. This is looking at the design and then moving forward, you're right, in a phased approach. Now that can all change based on the monies that we would receive if Niagara is successful in the 2021 games. Mm-hmm. But right now we're looking at a phased approach, but step one in phase one of this entire project being the design that needs to happen there. Cognizant of the need to amend that design, and likely we hear by March or April the decision on the Canada Games bid.
Was there something in last year's budget, through you, Mr. Chair, for this?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Angela's nodding yes. I'll have to recall what was in the 2016 budget, and I can have that answer for you on Saturday.
Okay, great, thank you. That's,
Okay, next.
yeah.
So moving forward again to mitigation efforts that we're looking at, I think similar to what you've heard from some of the other departments, we continue to look at regional, provincial, federal, and private sector partners in terms of additional funding and those funding opportunities. In terms of internal funding opportunities, I think, as was mentioned, as it relates to the Lincoln Center, facility rentals, rates, and fees, a number of you have heard me mention looking at our fees and ensuring our fees are appropriate. We will be doing a review of our hockey rates, and I have, informed the hockey users of that. So that we can, ensure we're meeting what is that council set, at least target in terms of a 70-30 subsidized versus, revenue parameter. We're starting to get some interest as it relates to movie shoots, and so I think what we need to do is set a permit type and a fee type structure for that. Right now, it's I think what we're charging is just a regular facility rental fee. I think what a lot of municipalities are doing is finding this is incredibly lucrative. The fees that a lot of these movie shoots, movie companies, television companies are willing to pay are a lot higher than the $150 facility rental that we charge. But I think in the interim, that facility rental agreement provided I think a base for the two individuals that had wanted to come and shoot both independent sort of films, within the community. Again, the opportunity with the 2021 games and the potential for any additional teams. We continue to get interest again from some of the lacrosse folks. We've got the Mavericks, and that was an agreement that started this September. Again, right-sizing our projects. You heard me mention this earlier, adding community rooms in our fire stations, and again, having multi-use spaces that we can rent, for example, in the museum, and again, looking at where we can kind of co-locate some things, whether it be a skate and pump track, a skateboard park, and so forth.
So, to Councillor Patrieva, did you have questions about any of these items, or are you about the general comments you just made?
No, just with respect to internal funding opportunities.
Okay.
If I may, Chair Foster, question to Mr. Kokopoulos. If we can have a look at, because it continues to come up. A few years ago, we adopted some policy on private rentals that they need some insurance rider. Most other municipalities have your home insurance provides you the coverage that you need when renting the facility. A lot of people have looked at renting the Fleming Center for birthday parties, for skating and that cost is just prohibitive. They can go to St. Catharines and rent the ice for much cheaper. So I think we need to have a look at that, because if that's becoming a barrier to revenue, that needs to be addressed. So I appreciate that, and maybe some of the other things that this is. It's affecting your adult users, and a savings in this insurance could be offset by an increase in fees, like the actual fees, and would probably make it more palatable.
So okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Through Mr. Chairman, absolutely, Councillor. I think what we need to do, I think with a facility, as Council's invested in the Fleming Center, a beautiful facility, in the heart of town, I think you're seeing significant interest in terms of rentals. We do have the birthday parties and those sorts of things, those that want to set up festivals and do all sorts of stuff. You're right. I think one of the issues I hear about most is looking at that indemnification issue, and is there, opportunities around that, and what's it related to? And I think we need to look at, again, what others are doing. And I'm always okay being an outlier, but not necessarily an outlier when it, I think hurts us or hurts our opportunities. So definitely we'll look at that moving forward and figure out, are we indeed an outlier, or is this just, one of the things that we need to do to protect the interests of the municipality?
We have one other item, and that's the library. Jill, you have 33,100 in for technology update. There's absolutely no details here. Could it be possible for us to understand what it is for Saturday? What it is that you're planning on doing?
I'm just going to say through you, Mr. Chair, we will not be presenting today. The library is not presenting today.
Okay.
We're going to be doing something different.
Okay.
What we're doing is that we'll be presenting at the November 23rd meeting. I'll be presenting with the board chair. Okay. And we're going to be presenting a report to council on what we've been doing over the past year with your funds, and then also presenting our budget.
Okay.
And about both operating and capital.
Okay. So we are dealing with capital on Saturday, and this is kind of important in the whole mix, right? So
we'll be doing both of those at that time, and the questions will be at that time.
Okay. For about the 6th year in a row, you're going to get from Councillor Thompson and I why we don't have the library and the town working together with IT. Mm-hmm. So my expectation is that you guys are going to answer to that at that meeting as well. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or any other comments from anybody at this point? Mayor Easton.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about grants. Last year we had, we put a great effort. At budget time, we talked about the necessity of increased grants for revenue, increased revenue overall. And I'd like to know how well we did this year and what's kind of in the pipeline and what we're anticipating for 2017. So I suspect that we're going to keep the same motivation going to increase that revenue stream as much as possible. I just wondered if Mr. Kokopoulos could speak to that. I know it takes a lot of staff resources to complete those applications.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I will recirculate, I think, the report that was presented at council last week or 2 weeks ago that spoke to the grants that we've applied for that are currently both in the pipeline, whether that be the OSIF fund, the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund, and the monies that are there. There's a number of Canada and Ontario 150 programs where we've got grant applications in. The Niagara Region PRIP funding that we received, $250,000 was set out by the region. $60,000 was received by the town of Lincoln, almost a quarter of that fund. And I think that speaks to the type of application and the type of proposal that we put forward. So I will, I agree with you, Madam Mayor. You will not see us slow down at all on the pursuit of grants and looking to senior levels of government, and whether that be through the work of AMO and other organizations as we figure out what are the funds available. I think sometimes it's figuring out what monies are available and how do you, strategically target those funds. I look at some grant applications that we have in with the museum. I think about some of the findings that we're generating on that particular site, and are there some monies through Ministry of Indigenous Affairs as well that we can potentially look at. So I think the list is exhaustive. In terms of the amount of grants, I think we need to be strategic. You're right. Putting forward good grant applications take time, take energy, and I think the second part of that that we need to continue to work much more closer with council on is the advocacy part. It's the advocacy that sometimes allows these things to move forward. There's a certain point where the application is the application, and I think we always need to ensure that we provide a very good, thorough application that's detailed, that aligns with our asset management plan. But I think the advocacy and the partnerships that are developed, I think, are critical. You're seeing both levels of government fund a lot of projects around innovation, around digital technology. I know Councillor Foster and I had a conversation today recently around the creation of digital digital pods, and how do we partner with organizations like Vineland Research and Innovation Center? How do we collectively go and advocate for monies that benefit both the municipality as well as the community at large? And so I think that's my long-winded answer probably at saying it is absolutely a priority. I think when you look in today's day and age, how difficult it is to generate additional revenues, grants is one of those ways. You've got a federal government right now that's investing in infrastructure that's definitely has identified, I think, $48 billion in infrastructure dollars that they want to allocate to municipalities. And to various projects within communities. I think about 6 to 8 million has been dished out so far, so that leaves a huge amount of money still to be had. And so again, we need to look at our needs. We need to partner with other organizations. We need to figure out, where we can etch out, the monies we need, to move forward some of our critical projects.
Mr. Chairman, the CAO already knows this, but certainly the report on Monday at the region that it was a meeting held with MP Badaway and Biddle, MPP Biddle, and they're available, particularly MP Badaway. They will help guide us. They will help us get on the right track, because sometimes these grants appear to be very cut and dried. They are not. There are certain directions they want us to move. It's sometimes a very, very fine course correction. He encouraged us to come and seek guidance from them. There is a lot of money out there, and we're going to have to recognize that we need staff who are equipped to do this, to get everything filled out that we possibly can. There's a lot of money out there. The other question I had, Mr. Chairman, was, and I understood that when Angela was sitting with you, Mike, that you had reviewed the capital list, and I had the impression that some things had been taken off. What did that mean? Did I misinterpret that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think as a senior management team, as an administration, whenever we're looking at budget, and I can tell you we started looking at this early this year, well before August when we came to you on the 10-year capital plan. We looked at what was in the 10-year capital plan. We looked at and tried to be anticipatory in terms of what some of the needs would be moving forward. And so I think, oftentimes we throw a lot of things on the wall. We throw around, what are the FTE asks? What are the capital projects? Those are often just, things as an administration we are throwing there. We are working through it. Everything that we received and that you've received has been thoughtful, has been deliberate. We haven't in the last final moments as we put this together taken anything off. I think we've spent more time in terms of deliberating what should go in the budget and how we potentially amend the 10-year capital plan and bring to you something that I think addresses your priorities, aligns to your priorities, and aligns to some of the things that we've heard throughout the year. Have there been some tweaks along the way? I think, this year was the first year we sat down with all members of council and wanted to hear with you what are your priorities. Some of the lists that we received from council were longer than other lists. There were some repeat items on this. We looked at those lists. We determined what are some of the things that we're hearing consistently through all members of council, and we made sure those things were on the list. So I think it's the if my comment was misconstrued, it was more around just the ebb and flow of how budgets are created and how we try to take council's priorities and hear what council I think wants and needs, and go through an internal vetting process, long before we're here in front of you in November, and these things often happen in the spring and summer.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I asked the question because last year we actually had a document, I believe, that identified things that had been taken off the list, but that could very well have been happening throughout the process. Mr. Chairman, my last question has to do with projected debt versus actual debt. And this is in relation to the reporting requirement if you debenture. Is there a difference, Mr. Chairman, through you to the CAO Kirkopoulos? Is there a difference between what we projected as debt last year and the debt that we actually took on?
That's something I think you guys can bring for Saturday morning.
Through Mr. Chairman, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking through my sheets here. Angela may have it at the top of her head. If what we projected last year is actually what we have in debt this year, she's saying no, and so we'll make sure by Saturday we have that. I think whereas we try to be as surgical as possible as it relates to debt and anything we've budgeted for. Sometimes, when we look at our projections in 19 and 20, they may be slightly higher. We may be the beneficiaries of additional grants and additional funding. And so I think, often cases you see those numbers come down. But typically when we look at debt and the issuance of debt, during a given year, that's a fairly surgical, deliberate number that is based on a lot of work and a lot of financial specificity.
Councillor Pachariva, you're not going to be here on Saturday, so just a quick comment to you. If you have any concerns about any items or whatever that are going on, email either myself or someone else, and we'll make sure that your concerns are brought forward on Saturday. So anyway, do you have any questions to any of these items that have been brought forward this evening?
Just a general comment. Foster, and through you, and I will send you those things or other various councillors. Just a question though, as we go forward, and I hearken back to that budget presentation we had last year about looking at a 3-year rolling average and 20% of the items that are in the 2017 10-year capital plan have increases anywhere from 20 to 70% from the figures we were given in August. If they're just going to be placeholders, can we have zeros in there? I did some comparison, or we need to be more cognizant of these figures because, to the mayor's comments that maybe some items in the past dropped out as we came into the budget. Well, if we're not forecasting properly, or we're just pulling these things, and I don't mean to be, there's a word, but I can't, throwing something at anyone. But we need to be more cognizant of those numbers, and again, percentages, figures lie and liars figure. So 70% is $7,000 on $10,000. But going forward, if we want to have a really good look at this, we got to drill down and actually be providing accurate figures, or just put the projects for now and then come with those as we go forward.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Pachariva, I agree with you, Councillor. I think what we need to do is, moving forward, you're right, when we were working on that 10-year capital plan in July, I think a lot of that was placeholders. I think this was the first time we went through this sort of process as we were looking at the 10-year capital plan, and I recall presenting the 10-year capital plan and highlighting that $17 to $20 million shortfall and how we would potentially address that. And I think, a lot of people wondering, wow, that's a huge number. How do we generate that number? The anxiety around that potential number. And so I think moving forward, now that we've been in this process for a year, now that I've been in this process, for a year, that, Angela and myself, our staff are going to make sure that, when we put numbers in there, that those numbers are based on current assessment, that they're based on, current actuals that we can generate as much as possible in terms of what things cost, and not looking at, prior estimates that we may have had. And so absolutely, I take your comment as one that, if we want to ensure that you have trust in the process and you have trust in what we're presenting, we need to make sure that those numbers, are as close to what you see in August or what you see, in July in terms of when we bring this forward is what you see in the budget process when we get to November. So,
Councillor Majima, again, to any of the items that are from this evening, do you have any questions? No.
No, it's about the budget schedule. I can read. So we have a meeting on Saturday. And so can we talk a little bit about that? And I'm hearing that some people may not be here, some people may be leaving early. I know that the original impetus for scheduling it on the Saturday was to be able to really sort of hammer it out and get as much as we can get done in one day.
So my opinion, for what it's worth, is that
Sure.
we as a council agreed that we were going to be meeting Saturday.
Yeah.
If people aren't going to be able to be there, then they won't be able to be there. So it's like any other meeting or any other meeting time that we have scheduled. So
As long as we have quorum, we carry on.
absolutely.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. And one more question, if you don't mind. Different question. We talked last year. We had the draft budget was posted online. I think Mr. Spadoni did that. I'm wondering if we can put it online, and if it is online, I think that would give people the opportunity to look at it ahead of time if they wanted to attend here today.
So, Mr. Clerk, can you explain what you're doing with that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the draft budget is currently online as part of the agenda package that was published this past Friday.
Okay.
So it's available through the agenda package route. We're just in the midst of getting everything set up with finance to move it to the special budget page that is set up as well. And I think I was going to speak to Angela about this as well to make sure that, for example, the budget survey results that were presented at the last CAL meeting were also transferred to that page as well, so that people can look at survey results there as in addition to them being on the agenda pages. So we're just doing that, pulling from agendas, moving into the web page.
Sounds great. And one more question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. So our next, after this Saturday, the next meeting is the 23rd? Because I thought it was on the 16th. It's the 23rd? Okay. All right. Thank you.
If Councillor Thompson, any last things on any items?
Yeah, actually, I'm just I'm just kind of confused, to be honest, Mr. Chair, in regards to the fact that the CEO of the library suggested she was presenting on the 21st.
I'm as confused as you are because
we're done capital by then.
We're done capital on Saturday, so we'll have to make decisions without input from the library. It's as simple as that. Like, I don't understand why the library has chosen to go this other route. I don't know, Mr. CAO, if you had discussions with them, but this is not appropriate. So.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I did highlight that we would be coming into the budget process and those dates. I did offer Jill that opportunity. I think in talking with her chair, Chairman Kralt, the decision was made that November 24th would be ideal. I can work with Jill between now and Saturday if there's some information she wants to share with me as it relates to those IT upgrades. I think Jill will be at that meeting on Saturday. I believe so. She will not. So, I mean, if there is something that I can bring forward on her behalf, I would encourage the library to share that. I have no problem bringing that forward. Alternatively, if November 24th is that date, then we will work with the library in whatever capacity we're directed through by council.
Okay, this has been a good overview. Mr. CAO, is there anything you want to add any final comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think just to go on some of the points that Councillor Rajima raised, we will ensure that we put a narrative around the budget and the budget process on the website. I know one of the two things I highlighted with Carrie, who just started on Tuesday as an immediate issue, would be the budget and the securing of the social media tools that we have in Facebook and Twitter and launching those. And so, some very deliberate work around how we're communicating the budget will be something that Carrie's working on moving forward. So rest assured it'll be on the website in a more prominent location than it currently is now, and we will direct the community to that information, and we will make sure that anytime we have a presentation like this, we're both talking with our media partners and the community to make sure that it's covered, that things are highlighted, that the questions that council asked and the focuses of council are additionally communicated as well.
Okay, can I pay you a compliment? The information at the beginning of the budget package is a nice communication piece, and it lays things out. And if that's going to be online too, I think people would like to see that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if you could indulge me one more time. I do want to thank Angela and her staff for putting this together. I know I was bothering Angela from Holland on the budget. She probably receives 15 emails from me a day, and she responds back incredibly quickly, probably too quickly. I've got to tell her to slow down in terms of how she responds. But her and her staff have done a phenomenal job, as have all of SMT. So my thanks goes to them. You've got a great finance team, and my thanks goes to all of SMT for their support in pulling this together this evening. So thank you, and I look forward to a not so long, but we'll see how Saturday goes. Yeah,
my expectation, by the way, is that Saturday we should be done by noon, but unless there's some major concerns over some of the items, but we'll dig into that and start. So it's 9 o'clock we're starting on Saturday morning? Pardon me? Yeah, we should be done by noon, I hope. So
it's interesting that you've got interest in movie shoots, because I understand that Hollywood's moving here.
To Lincoln?
Yes. Cranston is, Bryan Cranston.
That should work out well.
Yeah, we're all going to move here.
So this is suddenly breaking down. And by the way, you can have your staff send emails to you anytime that you want, as quickly as you want. So, okay, anyway, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.